The fluorescent lights of the community center hummed, a flat, indifferent sound. Clara, standing near the punch bowl, turned slowly, her smile thin and practiced. "I'm leaving with Robert," she announced to the small cluster of neighbors, her eyes skipping over mine. A sharp, unexpected pain shot through my chest, making the air in my lungs seize up. My hands tightened around the plastic cup, the ice rattling. "You're still young, Dale," she added, her voice dropping to a cool whisper as she passed. "You need a reliable man." Dale sits on their worn leather couch, observing Clara's face bathed in phone light. He reflects on this moment as the first crack in their relationship. He foresees this quiet evening leading to a Valentine's Day collapse. A flashback takes him back to his senior year prom night. He leans against his dad's restored 1967 Mustang, keys in hand. His prom date cancels with a transparent, flimsy excuse. Dale spots Clara alone on the concrete steps, dressed in an emerald green gown. Her head is down, revealing her obvious distress. He feels an unexplainable urge to approach her and asks if she is all right. Clara looks up, her intense eyes showing traces of smudged mascara. She candidly reveals her boyfriend abandoned her for something too mainstream. Dale laughs at her blunt honesty, admitting he understands her frustration. Clara notices his car keys and accurately identifies the Mustang's year. Dale expresses surprise at her knowledge, explaining his dad's restoration hobby. Clara introduces herself to Dale, who feels awkward in his formal attire. The blue light from Clara's phone cast a shifting shadow across her face, pulling the lines of her jaw tight. She sat on the worn leather couch, her thumb scrolling. It was a Tuesday, late in October, the wind rattling the old windows. I watched her, and in that quiet moment, I felt it. A small, almost imperceptible tremor. It was the first crack, I realized later, looking back on that quiet evening. A hairline fracture in the pavement, barely visible now, but the kind that eventually splits wide open. I saw it then, a premonition of the slow unraveling, knowing it would lead, eventually, to the ruin of our Valentine's Day, to the ruin of everything. My mind drifted, carried away by the familiar scent of old upholstery and the distant thrum of the refrigerator, back to another night, years ago. Senior year, prom night. The humid May air hung heavy and sweet with the smell of freshly cut grass and blooming lilacs. I leaned against the polished fender of my dad's restored '67 Mustang, the chrome gleaming under the streetlights. The keys felt cool and solid in my hand, a promise of freedom. My ill-fitting tuxedo felt stiff and tight across the shoulders, a rented shell that didn't quite belong to me. I had been waiting, checking my watch every few minutes. Then the phone call came. Sarah, my date, her voice a little too bright, a little too quick. "Oh, Dale, I'm so sorry, but Aunt Carol just got sick. Really sick. I can't leave her." The flimsy excuse hung in the air, thin and transparent as gauze. I knew it was a lie even then. Her voice held no real apology, only a practiced distance. She didn't offer a rain check, didn't suggest another time. Just a quick, polite goodbye, and then the dial tone. I stood there for a minute, the humid air pressing in, the Mustang a silent, gleaming monument to a night that wouldn't happen. Across the parking lot of the high school, near the main entrance, I saw her, Clara. She sat alone on the wide concrete steps, her emerald green dress catching the last sliver of twilight. Her head was down, bent low, and the light glanced off the silk fabric of her gown. Her shoulders were hunched slightly, a posture that spoke of disappointment, of something deeply upsetting. An unexplainable pull drew me across the asphalt. It wasn't pity, not exactly. More like a recognition of a shared aloneness, perhaps. Or maybe it was just the car keys, still in my hand, feeling suddenly heavy, useless. I walked over, the rented shoes scuffing lightly on the pavement. "Hey," I said, my voice feeling a little too loud in the quiet air. "Everything okay?" She looked up then, her head rising slowly. Her eyes, an intense hazel, were rimmed with a faint redness, and the black smudges of mascara beneath them told a clear story. She had been crying or close to it. The raw vulnerability in her gaze was disarming. "No, not really," she said, her voice a little hoarse but steady. She didn't try to hide it, didn't offer a polite deflection. My date bailed, said prom was too mainstream, and he had something more authentic to do. Her lips twisted in a small, bitter smile, whatever that means. I found myself laughing, a short, involuntary burst that felt strange in the quiet night. It was the blunt honesty of it, the absurd reason for abandonment. That sucks, I said, the words feeling inadequate but true. Her gaze shifted then, past me, to the car. Her eyes narrowed slightly, taking in the chrome, the dark cherry paint. 67, right? She asked, her voice losing some of its edge, a hint of curiosity replacing the earlier hurt. I was surprised. Most people just saw an old car. Yeah, a 67 Mustang Fastback, I confirmed, a flicker of pride in my voice. My dad's been restoring classics since I was a kid. This one's his pride and joy. That's cool, she said, nodding slowly. A moment of silence passed between us, the sound of crickets filling the space. I'm Clara, by the way. She extended a hand, small and cool. Dale, I replied, shaking it, feeling suddenly awkward again in my stiff, ill-fitting tuxedo. Clara walks to the Mustang, admiring its details. Her fingers trace the hood, accurately guessing the engine. Dale corrects her, proudly stating it's a 390. We upgraded. Impulsively, he asks her to prom, admitting his own date canceled. Clara's intense gaze softens, a genuine smile transforming her face. She agrees, preferring it to waiting for an Uber. They avoid dancing, spending hours in a quiet corner. They connect over carburetors and horror movies. Dale drives Clara home at sunrise, sensing a life-altering shift. He later discovers she admired him since sophomore year AP Physics. The irony strikes him. Both thought the other was out of their league. They start dating that summer, a period of perfect alignment. Their days are filled with car work, quarry swims, and future dreams. Clara plans a career in marketing and graphic design. Dale is set to attend MIT for computer science. On the eve of his departure, they sit on the Mustang's hood. Clara whispers her faith in their long-distance relationship. Dale, with all his heart, believes they will succeed. Clara walked towards the Mustang, her emerald dress rustling softly in the evening breeze. She moved with a casual grace, her gaze sweeping over the lines of the car. Her fingers, delicate yet sure, trailed along the cool metal of the hood. She paused, leaning in slightly. Is that a 280? She asked, her voice thoughtful, a hint of genuine interest in her tone. 390, I corrected, a small, involuntary smile touching my lips. My chest swelled just a little. We upgraded. Dad wanted more power. It wasn't boastful, just a statement of fact, a shared language of engines and horsepower. The words tumbled out before I could second-guess them, before the fear of rejection could latch on. Want to go to prom? I asked, feeling the sudden heat in my cheeks. I quickly added, the admission feeling a little raw. I mean, my date canceled too. We could just go. Her intense eyes, still a little red-rimmed from earlier, studied me for a long moment. It was a careful, almost calculating look, as if she were weighing the pros and cons. Then slowly a smile broke across her face. It wasn't the polite, distant smile she'd given earlier. This one was genuine, lighting up her entire face, erasing the earlier sadness. It was a smile that promised something good. Why not? She said, the corners of her eyes crinkling. It beats sitting here waiting for an Uber that's probably going to be late anyway. We walked into the gym, the pulsating bass of the music thumping against the floor. The air was thick with the scent of cheap perfume and teenage hormones. We skipped the dancing, the uncomfortable grind of bodies, and instead found a quiet corner near the punch bowl, tucked away behind a wilting palm plant. We talked for hours, the easy conversation flowing between us. We moved from carburetors and engine specs to obscure horror movies, comparing jump scares and plot holes. She had a dry wit, a way of cutting through pretension that I found both refreshing and a little intimidating. She knew things, understood things. She saw the world with a clarity I hadn't encountered before. I drove Clara home as the first hint of orange bled into the eastern sky, painting the sleepy Midwestern town in a soft, ethereal glow. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of dew and distant factories. As she stepped out of the Mustang, a quiet certainty settled over me. My life had shifted, irrevocably. The gears had clicked into place. It was later, much later, after we'd been dating for months, that I learned she'd secretly admired me since sophomore year AP Physics. She'd thought I was a genius out of her league, quiet and focused. The irony of it struck me then. I had thought the exact same thing about her. She was sharp, witty, beautiful. Someone who lived in a different, more sophisticated world than my own. That summer, after prom, everything finally felt right. Our days were a blur of working on the Mustang in my dad's garage, the smell of oil and gasoline thick in the air, our hands greasy and happy. We'd spend long afternoons swimming at the local quarry, the cold, clear water a shock against our skin, the sun warm on our faces as we dried on the rocks. We'd talk for hours, lying on blankets under the windy blue sky, dreaming about our futures. Clara planned on studying marketing and graphic design, her mind full of vivid colors and compelling campaigns. I was headed to MIT for computer science, already imagining the intricate code I would write. The night before I left for Boston, we sat on the cool hood of the Mustang, the sky darkening above us, sprinkled with the first hesitant stars. A symphony of crickets and distant traffic filled the air. Clara leaned her head against my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. "We'll make it work," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. A promise. It's only 4 years. I believed her. With all my heart, I believed her. Dale quickly discovers the immense effort required for long distance. Their relationship faces the harsh reality of opposite coasts. Clara enrolls at UCLA, creating a 3-hour time difference. Dale grapples with an intense course load at MIT. Clara juggles her demanding work-study schedule. Video calls often result in exhaustion and missed connections. Mutual longing becomes a constant, unspoken feeling. During a late-night call, Clara proposes an asynchronous solution. She suggests a way to share experiences despite the distance. That weekend, Clara mails Dale an identical PlayStation. Every Saturday night, they play the same game with headsets on. They laugh, talk trash, and catch up for hours in digital worlds. They establish a tradition of surprise visits. Dale flies standby to LA. Clara appears in Cambridge. Dale's roommate, grateful for debugging help, always cooperates. These intense weekends condense a month's togetherness into 48 hours. It's only 4 years. Clara's words, whispered under the darkening Midwestern sky, had carried the weight of conviction. I believed her, but I soon learned that making it work demanded far more strength, far more ingenuity than either of us could have imagined that night. The promise, once a comforting whisper, became a brutal reality. The long-distance relationship, a phrase tossed around lightly in high school hallways, settled in like a thick fog. Clara, with her ambition and drive, had enrolled at UCLA, chasing dreams of marketing and design under the California sun. I was in Boston, submerged in the demanding world of MIT computer science. 2 coasts, 3 hours difference. My insane course load, a relentless torrent of algorithms, data structures, and late-night debugging sessions. Clara's equally demanding schedule, balancing classes with a work-study job that kept her on her feet. Our attempts at regular video calls, once a lifeline, often ended in exhaustion. I'd be bleary-eyed, pushing past midnight in my dorm room, while she was winding down her day, already tired from classes and work. We'd miss connections, one of us falling asleep, the other staring at a silent, unresponsive screen. The longing, a dull ache beneath the surface, became a constant companion. One late Tuesday night, during a call riddled with buffering and lag, Clara's frustration finally broke through. "This isn't working, Dale," she said, her voice tight with weariness. "We need something that doesn't require us to be online at the exact same time. Something we can share." Her mind, always buzzing with solutions, was already at work. Something where we can still feel like we're doing something together, even when we can't actually be together. That very weekend, a large, unexpected package arrived at my dorm. Inside, nestled in a sea of bubble wrap, was a brand new PlayStation, identical to the one she'd mentioned buying for her dorm a few weeks prior. It was her answer, her ingenious solution to the miles and the time zones. Every Saturday night, without fail, we would log on. Not to a video call, but to the same digital world. Headsets on, we'd navigate virtual landscapes together. We'd battle monsters in fantasy realms or race futuristic cars through neon-lit cities. Our voices, clear and immediate, would fill the void. We'd talk trash, laugh at our inevitable mistakes, and slowly, gently, catch up on our weeks. The digital avatars were just a proxy, a screen. What mattered was the continuous stream of conversation, the shared experience, the feeling of her presence beside me, even if it was only her voice in my ear. Hours would melt away like that, transforming the vast distance into a manageable, even intimate, space. Beyond the digital connections, we established another tradition, one born of desperation and a deep need for physical presence: surprise visits. I'd fly standby to LA, often enduring endless hours in airports, fueled by cheap coffee and the anticipation of seeing her face. Or just as often, she'd show up in Cambridge, her arrival heralded by a text, "Look out your window." My roommate Max, a lanky computer science major, I'd helped debug countless projects, was always cool about it, understanding that these intense weekends were a desperate cramming of a month's worth of togetherness into 48 precious, fleeting hours. We'd devour the city, walk for miles, hold hands, talk until our voices were hoarse, trying to soak up every second, knowing the clock was always ticking towards another agonizing goodbye. During junior year at MIT, Dale meets Mitch. Mitch is lanky, wears rumpled clothes, and is in advanced algorithms. He has a terrifyingly fast, intelligent brain. They bond over shared disdain for group projects and a love for motorcycles. Weekends are spent fixing old bikes in Mitch's engineering house garage. Clara meets Mitch during her spring break visit to Cambridge. The trio takes a motorcycle trip to Cape Cod. They enjoy fried clams and discuss their future plans. Mitch reveals his innovative idea to disrupt tech consulting. He targets small businesses with lower rates and personalized service. This contrasts with massive, overpriced consulting firms. Dale recalls Clara's intense, calculating gaze as Mitch spoke. Later in Dale's dorm, Clara strongly urges them to start a business. Dale dismisses due to financial constraints. Clara argues they only need laptops and their intelligence. She notes Dale's passion for building systems, absent in corporate discussions. During my junior year at MIT, I met Mitch. He was a lanky guy, always wearing rumpled clothes that looked like they'd been slept in, and he sat 3 rows ahead of me in advanced algorithms. Mitch possessed a terrifyingly fast brain, the kind that saw solutions to complex problems before the professor had even finished writing them on the board. We bonded quickly, initially over a shared disdain for the convoluted group projects that plagued our courses, and then, more profoundly, over a mutual, almost obsessive, love for motorcycles. Weekends quickly transformed. Instead of just coding in my dorm, I'd be at the shared engineering house where Mitch lived, elbow deep in grease, in the cramped garage they'd claimed as their workshop. We'd spend hours, sometimes entire days, hunched over dismembered engines, the smell of oil and gasoline a comforting aroma. We'd curse at rusted bolts, celebrate small victories, and slowly, painstakingly, bring old bikes back to life. It was a tangible, satisfying kind of a mark, a stark contrast to the abstract world of code. Clara met Mitch during her spring break visit to Cambridge. The weather was still chilly, but the promise of spring hung in the air. The 3 of us, after a brief, awkward introduction where Mitch's usual directness met Clara's practiced charm, somehow clicked. We decided on a spontaneous motorcycle trip to Cape Cod. The wind whipped past us on the highway, blurring the drab landscape into streaks of color. We ate fried clams at a weathered shack overlooking the gray, choppy Atlantic, the salty air stinging our faces. It was during that meal, amidst the clatter of forks and the distant cries of gulls, that we started talking about our futures. Mitch, always a step ahead, articulated his groundbreaking idea. The tech consulting market, he said, gesturing with a clam strip, it's ripe for disruption. All these massive firms charging obscene rates, focusing on corporate giants. They ignore the small businesses, the ones who actually need the help, but can't afford the big boys. His eyes gleamed with a quiet intensity. He envisioned something different: lower rates, more personalized service, a focus on local businesses that were being overlooked. We could build systems for them, tailor-made, efficient, give them the tools to compete. I remember watching Clara as Mitch spoke. She was quiet, Her usual animated expression softened. She wasn't just listening, she was observing. Her intense eyes fixed on Mitch, then on me, a calculating look in them that I couldn't quite decipher at the time. It was a look of assessment, of weighing possibilities. Later that night, back in the cramped privacy of my dorm room, after Mitch had left and the silence had settled in, Clara turned to me. "You should do it," she said, her voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "You and Mitch, after graduation, start a business. His idea, it's really good, Dale." I dismissed it with a wave of my hand, the usual practicality kicking in. "Clara, we don't have any money, no startup capital, no investors. We're just college kids." But she wouldn't back down. "Money? What money do you need?" she countered, her voice rising slightly. "You have laptops, you have brains. That's all you need to start. Think about it, Dale. When Mitch was talking about building those systems, about helping those small businesses, you lit up." Her gaze was steady, unwavering. "I haven't seen you that excited when you talk about working for some corporate giant, slaving away on their code. That's where your passion is, building something real, for real people." Dale acknowledges Clara's insight about his corporate disinterest. Starting a business still feels like an unattainable dream. Clara tirelessly promotes the idea, sending articles and making connections. By graduation, the business idea is firmly established. Dale and Mitch officially register Axiom Consulting post-graduation. Dale's parents are confused by his rejection of lucrative tech jobs. Mitch's financially stable family is supportive. His investment banker father provides their initial client leads. Clara, having graduated, joins a Boston marketing agency. They finally move into a small, one-bedroom apartment. The apartment has mice and unreliable heating. After 4 years apart, it's their own space. All that mattered. The first 2 years of building Axiom are Dale's hardest. Clara simultaneously advances her career at the agency. I conceded that Clara was right. The thought of vanishing into the anonymous machinery of a corporate behemoth, spending my days optimizing someone else's code for someone else's bottom line, felt utterly hollow. It was a career path, certainly, a stable one, but it lacked the spark, the intrinsic drive I felt when diving into a complex problem that actually had a tangible outcome. Yet starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur, still felt like a distant fantasy, something other people did, people with trust funds or venture capital connections, not two guys who spent their weekends resurrecting old motorcycles. Clara, however, was relentless. She championed the idea with a quiet intensity that slowly chipped away at my reservations. She'd send me articles late at night, links to profiles of successful small business owners who started with nothing but an idea and a laptop. She'd even connect me, through her burgeoning network, with struggling local shop owners who desperately needed better websites or streamlined inventory systems, but were intimidated by the cost and complexity of traditional tech firms. She saw the need, and she saw our potential to fill it. By the time graduation arrived, the seed Mitch had planted, nurtured, and fertilized by Clara's unwavering belief, had taken deep root. The corporate offers, once gleaming beacons of security, now felt heavy, suffocating. 2 weeks after we received our diplomas, Mitch and I sat in a dusty county clerk's office, feeling a mix of terrified exhilaration, and filed the paperwork for Axiom Consulting. My parents, bless their hearts, were bewildered. They had seen me turn down lucrative offers from major tech companies, the kind that promised stock options and rapid career progression, for what they perceived as a gamble. "Are you sure, Dale?" my mother had asked, her voice laced with concern. "You worked so hard for that degree." Mitch's family, financially secure and well-connected in Boston's business circles, was more supportive. His father, an investment banker with a keen eye for opportunity, even provided our first client referrals, small but promising connections that gave us a foothold. Clara, having also graduated from UCLA with her marketing and graphic design degree, didn't hesitate. She secured an entry-level position at a boutique marketing agency in Boston. Finally, after 4 grueling years of separation, after countless missed connections and digital dates, we moved in together. Our first place was a tiny one-bedroom apartment near Somerville, plagued by mice that skittered in the walls and an unreliable heating system that made winters a brutal test of endurance. But it was ours. It was a tangible piece of the future we had built. And for us, after all that time, that was all that mattered. Those initial 2 years of building Axiom, while Clara simultaneously climbed the ranks at her agency, proved to be the hardest of my life. There were endless nights fueled by cold pizza and lukewarm coffee, the phone ringing at all hours, the constant gnawing anxiety of making payroll and finding the next client. It was a relentless uphill battle, a slow, arduous climb. We learned quickly that passion alone couldn't pay the bills. If you're finding this story interesting so far, stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. Every decision, every sacrifice, led us down a path we never truly anticipated. Dale and Mitch worked tirelessly, accepting any client. Fees often barely cover their operational expenses. Dale frequently considers a stable corporate job for Clara's comfort. Clara consistently anchors him whenever he wavers. She selflessly creates Axiom's website and designs their logo. Clara also pitches clients when Dale and Mitch are exhausted. Her unwavering belief in their dream both inspires and unnerves Dale. She reassures him, bringing coffee during his 3 a.m. debugging. Clara promises a well-insulated home and rest as their future reward. Axiom Consulting begins to gradually, miraculously succeed. By their 3rd year, Axiom gains a reputation for solving tough problems. They hire their first 2 employees, expanding their team. They relocate to a renovated South Boston warehouse office. The new office features exposed brick and dependable Wi-Fi. Clara's career flourishes, earning her a senior creative strategist role. She manages national brands, further advancing her professional standing. They finally leave their Mouse Palace for a decent Cambridge apartment. Life settles into a cherished rhythm of demanding work and sacred weekends. Weekends involve motorcycles, car shows, or old video games. Mitch remains a constant presence, partner, friend, and dinner guest. He often brings expensive wine to their weekly gatherings. The 3 spend hours discussing business, tech, and their fulfilling life. Dale reflects, "Everything was perfect. I should have known." Dale and Mitch worked relentless hours, accepting any client who would give them a chance, often for fees that barely covered their expenses. The early days of Axiom Consulting were a grinding test of endurance. More than once, as I sat staring at lines of code at 3 in the morning, the mice scratching in the walls of our tiny apartment, I nearly gave in. I contemplated searching for a stable corporate job, the kind I'd once dismissed just to afford Clara a home free of vermin and with reliable heating. The thought of her shivering under too many blankets, while I chased an uncertain dream, gnawed at me. But each time I wavered, each time the exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, Clara became my unwavering anchor. She saw the bigger picture, even when I was too tired to lift my head from the keyboard. She selflessly built Axiom's first professional website, designed their clean, modern logo, and even stepped in to help pitch clients when Mitch and I were too exhausted to string a coherent sentence together. Her belief in our dream was a certainty that, at times, both inspired and unnerved me. How could she be so sure when I, the one doing the actual work, felt so close to breaking? "You're going to make it," she'd assure me, her voice soft but firm, as she brought me a mug of hot coffee at 3 a.m. "Just keep going. We'll get a home with actual insulation, and you'll get a week of sleep. That'll be our reward." And gradually, almost miraculously, Axiom Consulting began to thrive. It wasn't a sudden explosion of success, but a slow, steady climb, a brick-by-brick construction. By our 3rd year, Axiom had quietly built a reputation for solving intractable problems, for delivering elegant, effective solutions where larger, more established firms had failed. We hired our first 2 employees, nervous but brilliant young developers, and moved into a renovated South Boston warehouse office. It had exposed brick, polished concrete floors, and, most importantly, reliable Wi-Fi. Clara's career flourished in parallel. Her talent for strategy and design was undeniable, and she was promoted to senior creative strategist at her agency, handling national brands and leading significant campaigns. With our combined, steadily growing incomes, we finally left the Mouse Palace for a decent 2-bedroom apartment in Cambridge. It wasn't luxurious, but it was warm, it was quiet, and it was ours. Life settled into a rhythm we both cherished. Weekdays were demanding, a blur of client meetings, coding, and creative briefs. But weekends were sacred. We'd take the Mustang for long drives, or ride the motorcycles we'd restored, letting the wind clear our heads. We'd visit car shows, hunt for antique parts, or lose ourselves for hours in old video games, just like we used to. Mitch was a constant presence in our lives, more than just a business partner. He was a best friend, a weekly dinner guest who always brought expensive wine, a subtle nod to our growing success. The three of us would spend hours talking business, debating the latest tech innovations, and simply living. It felt like a perfect life. Everything was perfect, or as close to perfect as real life gets. I should have known. Dale's earlier premonition initiates the story's dramatic decline. Clara's routines subtly shift, exhibiting unexplained late nights. A new guardedness appears in her demeanor. Dale observes unsettling details, fleeting glances, hushed phone calls. Vague excuses for distance become more frequent. Mitch's once comforting presence subtly transforms into an unsettling undercurrent. Dale attempts to dismiss his unease as mere stress. He desperately clings to the illusion of their perfect life. A forgotten item, an unfamiliar scent, or a chance observation sparks doubt. This seed of doubt begins to fester within him. Their once cherished weekend rituals now feel hollow. Shared hobbies become forced imitations of their former closeness. The silence between Dale and Clara grows heavy. It fills with unspoken questions and mounting suspicion. Everything was perfect, or as close to perfect as real life gets. I should have known. The thought, a cold, clear bell in the back of my mind, now rings with the bitter clarity of hindsight. This is where the story truly began its dramatic descent, a slow, insidious slide I was too blind, or perhaps too unwilling, to see at the time. It started subtly. Shifts in Clara's routines, small and almost imperceptible at first, began to surface like stones emerging from a receding tide. Unexplained late nights at the office became more frequent. Big project, she'd say, her voice a little too casual, a little too quick. Tight deadline. And with them, a new guardedness in her demeanor, a slight turning away, a less direct gaze when I asked about her day. It wasn't overt, nothing I could point to, but it was there, a faint shift in the air pressure around her. I started to notice small, unsettling details. A fleeting glance she'd exchanged with Mitch across the dinner table, a look that lasted a fraction of a second too long, holding some unspoken communication. Hushed phone calls she'd take outside, her voice dropping to a low murmur I couldn't quite catch. When I'd ask, she'd offer a vague excuse. Just my boss, or Sarah from work, complaining about her boyfriend again. Each one felt like a small, smooth stone, added to a growing pile in my gut. Mitch's presence, once a comfort, a reliable fixture in our shared life, slowly began to feel like an unsettling undercurrent in our domestic rhythm. He was still the same Mitch, still bringing expensive wine, still talking about code and motorcycles. But now, sometimes, when he looked at Clara, there was something in his eyes I couldn't place. Something knowing, something I didn't like. I tried to rationalize my growing unease. It was just stress, I told myself. The pressure of running a growing business, the demands of her high-stakes job. We were both tired. I clung desperately to the image of our perfect life, the one we had built with so much effort and sacrifice. I wanted to believe that the small cracks I was seeing were just flaws in the plaster, not foundational damage. Then came the more tangible things, the ones that planted a seed of doubt that festered, growing tendrils through my thoughts. A forgotten item once, a scarf not Clara's, found draped over the back of a chair after Mitch had left. Or a scent, faint but distinct, not her perfume, not mine, but something else, lingering in the air of our apartment one morning. A chance observation. Her phone, face down on the nightstand, vibrating silently with a message she didn't pick up, her hand hovering over it, then pulling away. Each incident, small on its own, accumulated into a weight that pressed down on me. The once sacred weekend rituals and shared hobbies, the very fabric of our connection, began to feel hollow. Our motorcycle rides felt less like shared adventures and more like two separate people going through the motions. Playing video games together, Once a source of easy laughter and genuine connection, became a forced imitation of closeness, the silence between our headset conversations stretching longer, filled with unspoken questions and a growing, suffocating suspicion. The jokes felt stale, the laughter thin. We were together, yes, but something essential had slipped away, leaving behind only the ghost of what we once were. This part details the devastating revelation of the affair and its immediate shattering fallout. Dale discovers irrefutable evidence of Clara's betrayal. He faces a gut-wrenching realization of her deep deception. The confrontation erupts, destroying their home and constructed lives. Clara's confession, or desperate denial, meets Dale's profound anguish. He experiences disbelief and utter devastation. The immediate impact threatens to unravel Axiom Consulting, their shared business. Friends and extended family are drawn into the painful aftermath. This forces difficult choices and strains support networks. Dale grapples with the emotional wreckage. He struggles to reconcile the Clara he loved with the woman who betrayed him. Their shared dreams, from college to business success, crumble. Only pain remains amidst the ruins. The premonition had been a whisper, then a faint hum, and finally a roar in my ears. The dam broke on a Tuesday. I found the emails, tucked away in a hidden folder on her old laptop, the one she used for work-from-home days. It wasn't just a fleeting glance or a hushed phone call anymore. This was irrefutable evidence. Dates, times, hotel names, specific, intimate details that left no room for doubt. The gut-wrenching realization of the depth of her deception hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a carefully constructed lie, woven into the fabric of our daily lives, stretching back months, maybe even longer. And it was Mitch. The confrontation wasn't quiet. It was explosive, a raw, primal scream that tore through the fragile peace of our apartment, shattering every carefully constructed piece of our lives. I held the laptop open, its screen casting a cold blue glow on her pale face as she walked in. Her eyes, usually so vibrant, went wide with immediate, stark recognition. "What is this, Clara?" My voice was not my own, a guttural sound I barely recognized. She tried to deny it, her voice trembling, grasping at straws. "Dale, it's nothing, just old emails, from a project, a joke." But the words were weak, flimsy, crumbling under the weight of the evidence on the screen. Under the burning rage in my eyes, then her shoulders slumped. The pretense dropped. Her confession, when it came, was a soft, choked whisper. "I'm sorry, Dale, I truly am." But the apology felt hollow, too late, a band-aid on a gaping wound. My profound anguish mixed with disbelief. The woman who had been my anchor, my champion, the one who saw the potential in me when I couldn't see it myself, was a stranger. The Clara I loved, the one who promised me 4 years would fly by, the one who brought me coffee at 3 a.m., was gone, replaced by this betrayer. My carefully constructed world, built with so much effort and sacrifice, crumbled around me. I felt a cold, empty void open up inside me, a place where trust and love used to be. The utter devastation was physical, a crushing weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. The immediate impact on Axiom Consulting threatened to unravel everything we had built. The business, conceived by Mitch, brought to life by my code, and nurtured by Clara's marketing genius, was now tainted. How could I work with Mitch, my best friend, my business partner, knowing this? How could Clara continue to build our website, design our campaigns, knowing what she had done? The foundation of our professional lives was inextricably linked to our personal one, and that foundation had just been obliterated. Friends, both mutual and individual, were reluctantly drawn into the painful aftermath. It forced difficult choices, strained loyalties, and awkward conversations. Some sided with Clara, others with me. Most just wanted to avoid the uncomfortable truth. Calls from family were filled with hushed tones, sympathetic murmurs, and thinly veiled judgments. There was no easy way out, no clean break. The mess spread, infecting everything. I grappled with the emotional wreckage, unable to reconcile the two Claras. The one who believed in me, who promised me a life, and the one who had so thoroughly, so cruelly betrayed that promise. The dreams we had built together, from those hopeful college connections, through the struggle of Axiom's early days, to our shared business success, crumbled around us. They lay scattered, dust and debris, leaving behind only the sharp, searing pain of what once was. Dale initiates the painful process of dismantling their shared life. He finds a new apartment, silent and stark, devoid of Clara's touches. Axiom. Consulting faces an immediate crisis, jeopardizing its future. Dale and Mitch try to salvage their business relationship. Their partnership is now strained, overshadowed by personal betrayal. Mitch offers, oh, Mitch offers a hollow apology, deepening Dale's sense of isolation. Clara moves out, taking her belongings and their shared dreams. Dale grapples with the solitude, haunted by memories. He begins rebuilding his routine, seeking solace in work. The memory of Clara's first crack comment haunts him. He understands it was a premonition of their inevitable end. Dale sells the Mustang, too many memories attached to it. He sees the betrayal as a lesson in life's unreliable promises. He commits to self-reliance, wary of future trust. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur of raw emotion and grim, practical necessity. There was no going back, no stitching together what had been so brutally torn apart. The apartment, once a sanctuary, became a battlefield of painful memories. I began the agonizing process of dismantling our shared life, packing boxes with a cold, methodical detachment that belied the storm raging inside me. I found a new apartment, smaller, older, in a different part of town. It was silent and stark, devoid of Clara's vibrant touches, a bleak canvas upon which to try and paint a new solitary existence. Axiom Consulting faced an immediate crisis. How do you continue to build a business with a partner who has betrayed you so profoundly? Mitch and I tried to talk, to find a way forward for the company we had poured our lives into. The conversations were stilted, awkward, punctuated by long, uncomfortable silences. His apologies felt hollow, his explanations weak, barely scratching the surface of the betrayal. He'd say, "I never meant for this to happen, Dale," or "it just did." Each word only deepened my sense of isolation. The partnership, once a source of strength, was now strained, overshadowed by personal betrayal, every decision colored by the knowledge of what had transpired. We managed to keep Axiom afloat, but the easy camaraderie, the shared vision, had been irrevocably broken. It was a business relationship now, stripped bare of any personal warmth. Clara moved out a week later, her belongings slowly disappearing, leaving behind empty spaces that echoed with ghosts. The emerald green dress, the one she wore to prom, was among the things she took. Our shared dreams, whispered under starlit skies, packed away and carried off, leaving me alone with the silence. The quiet of the apartment became a heavy weight. I grappled with the solitude, every corner, every object, a silent reminder of what we had built and what she had destroyed. I began the arduous task of rebuilding my routine, seeking solace in the relentless demands of work. Coding, once a creative pursuit, became a form of therapy, a way to channel the anger and sorrow into something productive, something that offered a semblance of control. The memory of Clara's comment from that quiet October night, the one about the first crack in the pavement, haunted me. I understood it now. It wasn't just a premonition of the Valentine's Day collapse. It was a premonition of the slow, inevitable erosion of everything we had. She saw it, perhaps even then, the subtle flaws in the foundation, the inherent instability in our carefully constructed world. The Mustang, once a symbol of our nascent connection, of hope and freedom, became a painful reminder of what I had lost. I sold it, the transaction quick and impersonal. Too many memories clinging to its polished chrome and rumbling engine. It was just a car, a piece of metal, but it represented a time when everything felt possible, when trust was absolute. Now it was just a relic of a beautiful lie. The betrayal had left an indelible mark, a hard-won lesson in the unreliable promises of life, of love. It taught me that even the most carefully built foundations could crumble. That certainty was an illusion. I emerged from the wreckage with a new resolve, a commitment to self-reliance, wary of future trust, understanding that some costs, once paid, could never truly be recovered. The blue light from Clara's phone, an image burned into my memory from that October night, now seemed to encapsulate everything. That first crack wasn't just a premonition, it was the beginning of the end. My new apartment remained sparsely furnished, the silence heavy but predictable. Axiom Consulting continued, a functioning entity, Mitch and I maintaining a professional distance that was colder than any winter in Boston. The business grew, but the joy, the collaborative spark that Clara had fostered, was gone, replaced by a methodical grind. The betrayal had cauterized something inside me. The easy trust I once extended, the belief in shared futures, now came with a heavy asterisk. I still worked, still coded, still sought out efficiency and logic. But the world had shed its bright, hopeful veneer. Life wasn't about perfection, I understood that now. It was about managing the inevitable cracks, enduring the unforeseen collapses, and moving forward alone with a quiet vigilance. The past was a series of lessons, paid for at a steep price, leaving me with a different kind of freedom. The freedom of knowing precisely what could be lost. The blue light from Clara's phone, an image burned into my memory from that October night, now seemed to encapsulate everything. That first crack wasn't just a premonition, it was the beginning of the end. My new apartment remained sparsely furnished, the silence heavy but predictable. Axiom Consulting continued, a functioning entity, Mitch and I maintaining a professional distance that was colder than any winter in Boston. The business grew, but the collaborative spark that Clara had fostered was gone, replaced by a methodical grind. The betrayal had cauterized something inside me. The easy trust I once extended, the belief in shared futures, now came with a heavy asterisk. I still worked, still coded, still sought out efficiency and logic, but the world had shed its bright, hopeful veneer. Life wasn't about perfection. I understood that now. It was about managing the inevitable cracks, enduring the unforeseen collapses, and moving forward alone with a quiet vigilance. The past was a series of lessons, paid for at a steep price, leaving me with a different kind of freedom. The freedom of knowing precisely what could be lost.